A very good morning and welcome back to Italy. We're in the northeast of the country, Toblach or Dobbiaco, whichever you prefer to call it, for the next stage of the Tour de Ski, the fifth stage of 7, an absolutely crucial stage today. 15 kilometres for the women, 25 for the men. It's the men who go off first. Now, we'll discuss with Mike Dixon the changes to the course from last year's run. Let's first have a look at the programme for the day here on Eurosport. We've got cross-country, biathlon, and then the women's pursuit over 15 kilometres with Marit Bjørgen getting a whopping lead at the start of that one. I cannot see anyone catching her, but has she still got enough in the tank for the final weekend in Val di Fiemme with, of course, the Alpes, the final stage of the Tour de Ski. Mike, the men going over 25 kilometres. Last year it was 35, and of course there's a lack of snow, as you can see on your pictures, and therefore we've got to go 5 times around the 5 kilometre loop. They're going to get dizzy by the end of today. Let's have a look at what happened yesterday. Well, Petter Northug was obviously one of the big favourites for yesterday's race. Sundby likewise, and the early pace really being set by Belov, who's been a little under the shadow of the Tour leaders, Mike, but Belov looking very impressive. Polteran in an astonishing run, double poling himself to victory virtually on the way down the hill. Sundby, though, a very solid performance.
And I think a massive day. You mentioned Belov, just everything about him, including his sprinting, is good this season, and he is a real threat. Only 7 seconds he starts behind today, but I think it was Sundby who capitalised on Northug's poor performance by his own high standards yesterday.
Yeah, that half a second could have made a big difference, because that would have meant another 5-second bonus for Belov. It didn't turn out that way. Besmertnik looking strong as well. A number of the athletes deciding to double pole the whole course yesterday. That was a bold move.
It was a brutal move. I'm wondering if Polterainen, we see him there, if he's going to suffer even more today from that output of energy. It is freestyle today, though.
And you reckon what? Worth 10-11 seconds on the descent from the high point of the course back down into the stadium. Polterainen, as you see, coming in with a 20-second lead.
I'm so happy. It was new experience for me, and I did it. I have a strong hand. And again I win here in Toblach, second time. I'm so happy.
Well, he doesn't sound too cheerful about it, but he certainly will have been lost a little sleep last night thinking about his success. When he says it's a new experience, do you think he's meaning it's the first time he's gone without wax?
I think it is. He's such a good classic skier, and to take that on as his first outing of purely double poling and to win the race, small margins, but he won the race. I think it was an outstanding performance, and it was the crucial 2 kilometres back to the stadium where he made all that time up.
So Northug, Sundby, Belov, Halvorsen, Polterainen will be the first 5 away, and only 26.5 seconds separating them. Welcome back to the Tour de Ski. We're on stage 5 of 7 today, the longest event of the Tour so far. In fact, the longest event by some margin throughout the whole Tour, and an absolutely crucial one in the men's because of the distance at 25 kilometres. And in the women's, Mike, it's only 15k, but last year they did 15 kilometres, but it was all downhill. So this is a much tougher course for them.
I think this gives, in the women's field, Therese Johaug an opportunity this is her day to make a chance over this distance. Her freestyle is very good, and the climbing aspect of this track, surely Johaug can pull a little time back off Bjørgen.
Well, I think she's going to have to if she wants to win today. The women going off just a little bit later on, the men going first as they did yesterday. And just a reminder of the remainder of the Tour, they have a day off tomorrow, which they deserve, because this is the 3rd consecutive day of racing, which is phenomenal when you compare it to athletics and other endurance sports, where what do they race? 5 or 6 times a year. And these guys are racing 3 days on the trot, on the back of the initial opening stages of the Tour as well. So we move to Val di Fiemme after our visit here in Toblach at Dobbiaco. And Val di Fiemme, the venue for the final stages as always. And we have a 15k for the men, a 10k for the women. And then, of course, the final day, which is the chase up the downhill slope, a 9-kilometre ski.
I think the key is the recuperation, the recovery after this 25-kilometre for the men, 2.5-hour drive over to Val di Fiemme, so that comes later this afternoon. Of course, they'll want to get out on the track tomorrow, probably early, so they can maximise the rest leading into days, the second last day, which is the 15k classic. Mass start, another intense race.
Well, what does Peder Northug do today? Does he go hard to try and increase his gap, or does he save something for the final 2 days? It's a difficult one. With a day of rest tomorrow, they may feel they can go all out today.
I think today is a vital day, and the fact that it's around this 5-kilometre track 5 times, it surely shouldn't be. This man is going to catch up with Northug by 2 seconds, and then he'll dictate the pace. And I think they have to keep it strong, because Dario Colonia can pull time back. Halvorsen can get in amongst it with them very quickly. Polterainen can close the gap as well, if it slows down at all.
Peder Northug still leading the Tour. It's only a 1.5 second gap after the last 4 stages. Air temperature at minus 5.9. At last, a little bit of winter has arrived here in the north of Italy, and well, the snow temperature at -7. The waxing pretty easy for the technicians after a troublesome year so far. I can't see too many athletes making mistakes with the skis. The course, Mike, same as we saw yesterday, that big climb all the way up to just over 2 kilometres, and then undulating but downhill towards the stadium. 5 times round?
I don't think we can underestimate how difficult this is. It's an 845 metre in total climb from start line to finish line, so a huge amount of work over the 25 kilometres.
Now, we've always used this loop on this leg, but normally it's the final loop, having climbed up that 30 kilometres of track, a constant uphill. Difficult to say which is a harder course for the men.
It is. I think the point-to-point last year from Cortina over into the valley here, I think that's psychologically, that's a tough climb. It's a very steep climb out of Cortina up to the top of the pass.
Now, as you glance your eyes over this start sheet, just remember their position is indicative of where they lie in the Tour de Ski standings at the moment, and those of you sharp-eyed may have picked up on Andrew Musgrave. You certainly will have seen the Union Jack at number 21, so he's lying in 21st position. He finished 26th in the Tour last year, but he was a long way down on the position he's in at the moment, so a really good opportunity. A top 15 would be sensational, wouldn't it? But it's not an easy job.
It's not an easy job. Muzzy's 2:37 behind, and a real chance today. He likes the freestyle more so than the classic. I'd love to see him get up into the top 15.
Separated by only 2 seconds. Belov at 7 seconds. And Halvarsson 14, Polterainen 27.
Just moments to go before the start of the men's 25 kilometre, the key leg of the Tour de Ski, excepting, of course, the final leg up the Alpe d'Huez. So Northug and Sundby are underway. Just 6.4 seconds down is Yevgeny Belov of Russia, whose form has been getting better and better as the Tour has gone on. The first of the Swedes starts, Kalle Halvorsen, who's looked very strong and very determined all the way through so far. He'll be followed by Polterainen. A little bit of a gap between Halvorsen and Polterainen. So Halvorsen has a decision to make. Does he try and catch the leaders, or does he just wait for Polterainen to come alongside? I don't think he'll do the latter, because Polterainen is not a very good, he's a brilliant freestyle skier, but he's not as good as the others when you compare it to his classic style. Dario Colonia still waiting. He goes at 54 seconds. 5 seconds to go for Dario Colonia. If he's going to win this Tour for a 4th time, surely he has to make some sort of a move today. He's got Alex Harvey some 13 seconds behind, so the gap's fairly substantial between 4, 5, 6 and 7, and it's going to be really interesting to see where the break occurs. Who goes to try and join the leaders, and who fails to do so. Alex Harvey just going, Mike, how do you fancy his chances?
Alex Harvey, traditionally on this stage, from the point to point, he's always been good, and I think the longer the distance, as we've seen in the 50 kilometres, Alex Harvey likes the distance, so I think it'll suit him today.
Niskanen has gone. Eldar Roning for Norway. Next to go is Danny Rickardson, number 11. He's 1:37 off the pace of the leaders. He had a poor opening leg, the prologue, Rickardson, so maybe that's an indication that he's going to drop down the order. In fact, Rickardson losing ground in all of the freestyle legs and also failing to qualify in the sprint as well. Viljanin 12. We've got Chernozov of Russia. In fact, 3 Russians in a row. They could team up, Mike. That could be worth a few seconds.
It certainly can. 148, 159, 159. If they can work together, surely the whole idea is about trying to close your gaps today. But Sundby is now at the front and pushing the pace extremely hard.
Marcus Hellner is underway for Sweden. Number 19 there is Francesco De Fabiani, who so nearly got a win in Oberstdorf. Just a loss of balance cost him in the end. Maurice Magnificat, the best of the French, and only a couple of seconds behind him it will be Andrew Musgrave of Great Britain. Away goes Magnificat, who will be racing for the victims of the Charlie Hebdo attack in Paris. He said so before the start of the race, so we'll wait and see how that inspires him today. Andy Musgrave wearing 21, Sveen of Norway 22, and number 23 is Bernhard Tritscher of Austria, 2:42 behind. The leaders have already completed the first kilometre.
Depressing, and what a long wait here. And of course, any athletes over 4 minutes, they'll start in a wave, and by my calculation, there's going to be just under 20, 18 in fact, starting in a wave at 4 minutes.
Burgel, Turyshev away. You might have picked up on Federico Pellegrino. We've got a few withdrawals. We'll talk through those since that's obviously important if you're looking out for someone who's decided to call it a day on the tour once everyone's got underway. And the leaders, you can see, or the early starters in the background, a 5-kilometre loop, 5 times round. Well, it's such a different race, isn't it? In last year's, the previous years, where you have the long climb up the valley, people just taking it very, very steady indeed. Sundby's in the lead. We're with the leading group now, and no surprise to see Belov there. Petter Northug is there. Kalle Halvorsen has already gained 13 seconds on the leaders. Now that leaves Alexei Poltaranin, who we don't expect to join this group of 4, and then Dario Colonia, who was some 30-40 seconds behind Halvorsen at the start of today. Well, I think that leading group of 4 have made absolutely the right move, Mike. As individuals, they can produce a decent time. As a group of 4, and when you look at the quality of the skiers there, they can do enough to hold off whatever attack Dario Colonia throws at them.
It does make me wonder a little, Patrick, for Kalle Halvorsen to pick up 14 seconds in 4 minutes. He's really almost sprinted to close that gap quickly. Sundby was aware of it, and he kept the pace strong. So what's going to happen to Halvorsen later, I'm not sure. He's put a huge effort in there in the first part. I think that was a perfect strategy for his chance to get some drafting and work through.
Colonia started 54.8 behind, and he's now 59.5, so 5 seconds have gone begging. So the pace at the front is not slow. We have to just reinforce that. Alex Harvey started 1:07. He's lost 3 seconds as well. These skiers, surely Colonia, Harvey and Dirhaug have to join forces as well, otherwise they're just going to lose time to the leaders.
And I think with all those big named athletes running at the pace you said, I think it just shows what Halvorsen has done. I think he's done absolutely the right thing. Can he survive the pace?
Well, we'll get another time split when they come down through the stadium. Actually, we're going to get plenty of time splits today. Could have done with a few more yesterday. The blue bib of Niskanen going through, the best of the under-23 athletes on the tour. I think he's going to remain that way, provided he finishes. Viljanin for Russia goes through 1:48. He started 1:47, so not a bad start from Viljanin, and closing in on the group ahead of him, and hopefully for him holding off Chernozov and Besmertnik, who are just behind. 16 is Marcus Hellner, started 2:04. He's gained on that leading group, and well, that's pretty unusual. I think he's the only one to have done so, actually, Mike. Jespersen started 2:02, now 2:03, and so a really good ski from Marcus Hellner, and if he keeps that going, he's going to be a massive benefit to that group that he's with. The Italian trio, Nukla, Clara, De Fabiani, they started 2:14.22 and 2:24. No doubt that they decided to team up.
Definitely, and that is the best strategy. Well, Muzzy catching Magnificat quickly. Magnificat, he likes this distance, and that's a big shift for Muzzy to pull a few seconds back already.
Well, you know what? Musgrave, 4 seconds faster than the leading group, the fastest on the first stage. It's impressive, but I'm not sure it's the best idea.
I think he had to. He made a decision. He knew that in front of him, Magnificat was going to set a very strong pace. We've seen so many times in a chase that Magnificat is one of the best. And I think that's what Andrew was budgeting on.
Well, it's impressive that he's capable of doing that, but whether it's the best tactic for a good result at the end of today, I think it's a really positive attack from Musgrave, and I think you're right. He knows that Magnificat is one man who's backed by the bookies to move up the order today, and he might as well jump on that train.
I think so. I think it's
just take the risk.
You have to take the risk, and I think, and because if those gaps open, it becomes harder. If you're in no man's land like Polterainen, the task becomes that little bit more difficult.
Yeah, not just physically, mentally as well. And of course you miss out on the slipstream effect, which isn't really significant on the climbs uphill, although you do feed off the other skiers' rhythm. On the flats and the downhill, there's a 1.5% advantage being tucked in behind someone. That can make all the difference come the final 5th lap.
And it's also about rhythm, isn't it, and relaxation. When you're tucked in behind, like Muzzy there behind the fantastic skater of Magnificat, you can relax, you can get a breather, you can tuck in, you can glide a little longer. So, but Sundby's taking all the work at the front.
Yeah, this group have got to be prepared to do some of the work, otherwise their healthy lead could be eaten away by those chasing.
Well, there's one man who we've seen over his 9 years on the tour that never takes the work on in a situation like this, and there he is at the back of the group.
That's his way of racing. It doesn't mean he's not working at 100%, Mike. I think in so many races he's just hanging on, but knowing that if he can get to the final kilometre, he's got a chance of winning.
That's so true, but it is the sensible strategy. Why do all the work at the front? Sundby knows he has to keep the pace strong to not allow Polterainen in. He'll be aware that Cologna's trying to close the gap down, so Sundby doing everything right.
Well, we were expecting Polterainen to lose ground. He started 26.5 and really just waiting for someone else to catch up with him. And the man who will catch up with him at some stage is Dario Cologna. Now, how's he feeling, Mike? So often, in fact, just about every time he's been in the Tour, he's been in a position to win it on stage 5. It's quite a significant margin, 54.8 seconds at the start of today. That's extended to 1:05. How's he going to cope mentally with that?
I think it's a difficult day for Cologna. Had he been by chance in with, say, Halverson, another athlete, his journey would be easier. Is he pacing it sensibly? 10 seconds slower at this stage? Maybe he's just going with the knowledge this is over 25 Ks and not 3.6.
Yeah, so Cologna's lost 10, Harvey's lost 11, Deerhaug started 1:16 and is now 1:21, so not a bad start from Deerhaug. This is a group that's moving pretty well. Danny Rickardson started at 1:37, he's at 1:41, and then we got Eldar Roning, who started at 1:31 as well, so he's done well, Roning. And then we're certainly expecting to see Chernesov make some gains at some stage, Mike. He started 1:58, wearing bib number 13, and 14 is Besmertnik, who started at 1:58 as well. Well, Chernesov now 2:08, so I wonder whether he's just taking a breather after that initial burst. And the next man we're going to be watching out for is Marcus Hellner, who's wearing bib number 16. He started 2:04 behind. Fifth in the Tour, it's Alexei Polterainen of Kazakhstan. Enjoyed his victory yesterday. That was worth a few Swiss francs. And he'll be hoping that he can hold on to a top 5 for the rest of the Tour. But he's really a better classic skier than he is freestyle. He finished 19th in the prologue the first day of the Tour, which wasn't a bad result for Polteranen, but I can't see him making gains on this group, which looked to be moving pretty well. Beloff now at the front, and Sundby just moving down into second place. Northug, do you think he's going to spend 4.95 laps at the back of this group?
Yes. But it was interesting as he was gliding into the stadium. Well, he's going wide now on the right. He was just shaking his arms, just getting the blood flow through, just managing his energy systems, managing his recovery.
Well, you know why he moved to the right, because he always takes maximum speed into the base of the hill. Now, most people just stick in behind the skier in front and therefore have to decelerate. Northug reckons that is wasted energy, so he'll move to the side, move up along the guy in front, and then as they do the work on the uphill, he'll just drop back into the position. Seen it time and time again. And when it comes to the crucial stages, he may well try and get in front before the start of the climb and then dictate the pace up the hill. But everyone knows what his trick is now.
They do, but even though they know his trick, and which the three others in the pack at the front, they know exactly his games, but they don't seem to be able to preempt him. They know what he might do, but he can cheekily come up with another strategy that is a winning strategy.
Yeah, he does have this ability. You know, we know all about his sprinting and we know all about his determination, but one of the things that I think sometimes underlooked is his ability on the downhill to accelerate, and then his agility to work his way through the field into the right position. Not all skiers can do that. In fact, he's probably the best at it in the world.
He's incredible. In Oberstdorf, day 2, he found he created some amazing speed on the descent. He cut the corners way tighter than he ever would normally to get his exit speed into the stadium faster than anybody, and then all he had to do was double pull to the line.
Well, it's not looking good for Swiss ski fans, because Cologne has already lost 15 seconds. That's one loop completed. They've got another 4 to go, so it's not over yet. But if it continues as it started, then Dario Colonia is going to be way behind at the start of tomorrow's leg, which is a 15-kilometre classic, and he may get 30 seconds back in that, but certainly no more than that. And then he's going to have a tough climb up the Alpe d'Huez on Sunday. Niskanen, and well, he's in a great position, isn't he? He's behind the tallest man on the Tour and the man with the biggest slipstream, Rickardson. Rickardson, I think, will do very well today. Halvorsen has got his recovery now, if that's possible, after his 14-second pickup. It's quite a feat, that, to pull 14 seconds back so quickly. And good news for British fans, Muzzy he's absorbed the 3 Italians, so there's a potential already for him to be moving up into effectively 17th place in the Tour. Well, that's a fantastic effort from Musgrave. Our only concern is that he pushed so hard in the first kilometre and a half to get in contact with Maurice Magnificat. But if the plan's working at the moment, come lap 4 and 5, we'll see whether he pays a price for that initial burst.
Well, Northug at the back, Patrick, I know he's a deceptive. For me, he's certainly looking tired today. They're all tired, but he's looking just a little more tired than the 3 ahead of him.
Dario Colonia has gone past Polteranen, as you can see, so he's made up some 30 seconds, 28 seconds it was, in fact, initially, the margin. And 7 and 8, which are Alex Harvey and Nicholas Deerhaug, who started some 42 seconds behind Polteranen. Look from this picture as though they're closing in, but they've still got a bit of work to do before they draw alongside the black suit of Dario Colonia, former world #1.
I'm wondering,
who is the best skier? Sorry, Mike. Who is the best skier in the world at the moment? Who do you put your money on?
Oh, I would say it's still Sundby. Still Sundby.
Yeah.
He's got so much mental strength up the front there. He's such a determined character. Colonia, for me, is, as we've had our debate before, but is it Northug? Is it Colonia? Colonia is a good all-rounder.
Well, if you take
and I think
Sundby,
he's running this one well today. His pacing is good.
Yeah. Take Sundby, Colonia and Northug all on their very best form. Northug would win a mass start. Colonia would win a 15-kilometre. And Sundby would win over any distance longer than that.
I think so. The longer the distance, the better Sundby. And he got his strategy a little wrong at the Olympics over 50. He should have got a medal that day.
Harvey now 134. Remember, he started at 107. So the Canadian losing significant amounts of time. Welcome back to Italy. Svein of Norway just going through, and I can tell you, as you can see, Andy Musgrave's gone through at 2:33 and is still the fastest skier out there on the tracks at the moment. 3 seconds quicker than the leading group, and still that is of concern, but he's putting up a tremendous fight, Andy Musgrave, and they've left a little bit of a gap between themselves and Svein of Norway, who started 22. So it's a great effort from the Brit, who's doing his utmost to get himself into the top 20 of the overall Tour de Ski, and if he can keep this pace going, he'll certainly achieve that, and then he's going to need at least 24 hours to recover.
And you know, Patrick, just 25 seconds faster. If he can pull back 25 of those ahead of him, it could move Muzzy up into top 12 in the Tour de Ski.
Long way to go yet. 25-kilometre race, 10 kilometres shorter than last year, but instead of the one long climb up the valley towards Toblach, it is this 5-kilometre loop. They're going around 5 times, and therefore they have to ascend the big climb that many times, and I wonder whether this group of 4 are going to stay together the whole way through. Halvorsen now looks as though this is a concerted effort by Halvorsen. Beloff looks okay. Sundby looks comfortable, but Sundby looks comfortable even if he's on his last legs, and Northug at the back always makes you think he's had it.
Isn't it strange? And will it rattle, will it annoy the other 3 who have each of them done a lot of the work at the front? You know, for a kilometre they're doing the chain gang like cyclists do, taking the lead, moving back. Northug's having none of it. He's in 4th position all the time. That will irritate them.
Well, it's a really good opportunity, Mike, with Northug and Sundby both in that front group, to look at their different techniques, and we have many discussions about this. I feel, and you can see it when they ski together, that Northug has got too much flexion in the hip, and he's too reliant on the upper body, so the torso and the arms, you know, the lats and the triceps. Sundby looks very erect, the hips are forward, and most of the power, because of that, is coming out of the legs, and that's the big muscle group.
It's interesting. I mean, Northug has cut, you know, a new way of skiing, a new way of attacking. But I think you're right, and I think especially on the final day, when you're climbing up the final 4 kilometres of red downhill ski run, I think his Northug's slower tempo is what is his undoing in the climbing. You need a good cadence, an upper tempo, as Jonsrud Sundby has.
Well, we'll get to see that in a moment. Let's just pay attention to Dario Cologna, and last time we saw him, he was a minute 15 off the leaders. Has he started to accelerate? Looks as though he has a little bit, so that's good news for Dario Cologna. 8.6 kilometres in 18 minutes, and Nicholas Deerhout just looking around, wanting someone else to do some work, and luckily for him, Alex Harvey is on hand, the #1 Canadian on the Tour. A couple of emails saying Alex or Pierre, his father, the better skier.
It's a different era, a different style of racing. Pierre was cutting edge in that Pierre kind of led the trend of arm power ahead of, you know, it used to just be leg power, short poles. He went for very long poles. So Pierre was a forward thinker and changed many things. Difficult to say. I would say they're equal.
Well, Pierre only did 29, 30 World Cups. He got 3 victories in his time. Alex has already picked up 4 victories, but I think he's done almost 150 World Cups. I think this is his 150th World Cup today. So he's done a lot more racing already, despite the fact that he's a young man. And this 26.
And this different era of racing, if you're good and you're tactical, there's Muzzy moving up to 19th.
Into the top 20 for the first time in the Tour for Musgrave. 32nd in the opening prologue. We were expecting him to be a little bit quicker than that. But as well as doing well in the Tour, Mike, he's picking up valuable World Cup points all the time.
Huge amount of points, and I think he's ranked in world terms, I think it's 45th at the moment. This will certainly help his case. He could be moving up into the top 40 in overall world ranking.
So the world ranking is overall, so it takes in sprinting, it takes in classic and freestyle. You put Muzzy on his favourite discipline, a 10 or a 15k freestyle race, he's a lot higher than 45th in the world.
Absolutely, and we saw the 10 kilometre up in Lillehammer, he finished 13th in the world in that distance race.
So the leading group, the only predictable thing about this group is that Petter Northug's going to be at the back. Is he going to move out to the side again? I don't think he needs to, because Halvorsen is far enough ahead for Northug not to have to decelerate. And a little change in tempo from Belov just to go over the officials' building here. It's a great design, isn't it? Really atmospheric. The racers like it. It's good for the pictures, and I dread to think how much it costs, but it is one of the most spectacular ski stadiums around.
It's a wonderful stadium. I know they spent millions of euros to make sure that this will last and that the Tour de Ski will always come here. And the track, the 5-kilometre track, is called the Saskia Trail. Obviously the local skiers, the Santos sisters, a lot of the trails are named after them.
Their father owning a hotel, he probably owns a percentage of this area, and they've had a great opportunity. We're not so far from Antolz. It is a wonderful, wonderful place to come and ski. Actually, a lot of the skiers come down and do altitude training around here.
There's so many little side valleys as well, which we certainly have stayed in for the Antolz World Cups, and you can get up to 2,400 metres and still find cut tracks.
Now, will Dario Colonia have clawed it back? He went from 1:15 behind to 1:13, and a couple of kilometres further on, it's gone back the other way. So losing time on the descent to the stadium. That's a little bit of a surprise.
It is a surprise, but I think Belov, when Belov took the lead again, he really started upping it, was irritated with Nortug, and I honestly think, Patrick, I think this is a defining moment in the senior category for Belov. He seems to have landed, he seems to have more stature, and he really wants to win the Tour as well.
11 is Danny Rickardson, who's made good gains, gone up from 11th into 7th place at the moment. Niskanen and Harvey there. These 5, I think they'll be seeing Dario Colonia before too long. I know the margin's still fairly significant, but a group of 5 so much more effective. And here's the next group behind them. Musgrave is in it as well. They've started to drop one of the Italians. I'm just a little concerned that Muzzy is right on his limit at the moment, and a 2-3 metre gap behind the leading Italian there. It's Maurice Magnificat of France leading that group of 3 behind, as Jespersen and Schoenershoff and Hellner go through. Hellner's the man in the white suit. Time Sweden thought of something other than white to wear.
Well, I mean, it's outstanding. Well, when you've got the trees in the background and we haven't got snow in the background, it's outstanding, but normally it blends into the white background. I think they need to change. They won't, though.
Back to the leading group, who are already halfway up the climb. In fact, further than that. They're going through 12.4 kilometres. And remember, it is a 25-kilometre race, so pretty much at halfway now. Well, what a situation we have here in the Tour de Ski. The leading group of 4, and I think now the likely medalists at the end of the Tour on Sunday afternoon are away and clear, and they've got a decent margin over the rest of the field. Almost a minute and a half. Dario Colonia is not accelerating at the moment. He's on his own, effectively dragging Polteranin along, but then Rickardson is leading a train that are definitely starting to turn it up. Harvey's in there, Deerhaug, Niskanen and Roning, and then the group behind them, and they're only some 20-30 metres behind, containing the likes of Magnificat of France and Andrew Musgrave of Great Britain. Here they are, a much bigger group, and I think that's great news for Muzzy, Mike, that he's got good company now, and perhaps even Magnificat will wind it down, having put in such an effort early on. Musgrave, to the last split point, still had the fastest time on the course.
He's on fire, and he's a hunter by nature, he's competitive by nature, and he's seeing all these lower numbered bibs ahead of him, and it's feeding him some energy. I don't know where from, but he's looking brilliant.
Well, I hope his dad Frank is sitting and enjoying this, and feeling that all his investment in time and money in the early years of Andy has been proved worthwhile. It certainly has. And of course, perhaps the best thing Musgrave ever did was to move to Scandinavia early. It took him 2 weeks to learn the language, or something ludicrous. But now the Norwegians even claim him as their own.
They do. They want him. They admire him. He's a very quiet, a modest guy, and that's what they like, and that's what normally the Norwegian athlete is as well. And everything's gone, as you say, to have the intelligence that he has and the ability to push so hard out here as a top-class athlete. He's an all-rounder.
21 at the moment is Tritcher, who started 23rd. 2:42 was the margin initially for Tritcher, so he's lost a significant amount of time. This is the leading group. Sundby out there in front at the moment. He's shared the bulk of the lead with Belov. Halvorsen has done a little. Actually, Halvorsen accelerating after they completed the second lap. But Petter Northug, he's been in 4th place all the way along, having started first. It really didn't take any time at all before he dropped to the back of the group, and that's obviously a race tactic. Well, there you see the standings. The yellow bib is the overall World Cup leader, Sundby. The black bib is the leader of the sprint standings. The red bib is the leader of the Tour de Ski at the start of today. Whether he'll still be the leader at the end of today, we'll have to wait and find out.
Will the other 3 in this lead group, will they become irritated? Will they almost do a tactical stop and say, right, get to the front, do some work, Petter? Bonuses today, 15 seconds for the winner, 10 for 2nd place and 5 for 3rd place. So this group really will become even more competitive.
Well, that means there's going to be a real fight now. Sundby looks to be extending himself in the final section of that climb. 29.19 on the clock for 13.6. So they're going to be well under the hour for the completion of 25 kilometres. It is staggering. There was a day when they were doing 15 kilometres an hour. Things have accelerated somewhat. Partly due to the fitness, obviously, and the development of techniques, but the equipment has also played a massive part.
I think the biggest aspect is the base of the skis
and the track.
The track, you've got, it's mostly, well, it's all machine-made snow, and the chemicals, the waxes on top of the base really are increasing glide factor. But also, freestyle's only been around, what?
1985.
Yeah, what's that, 30 years?
Yeah.
So these athletes we're looking at now, they've been absolutely brought up with freestyle skiing, and it's built into their systems early.
Well, I think that's inaccurate, actually, Mike. Freestyle really was developed in 1984, but there were only a couple of guys doing it who disappeared into the forest, like Thomas Vasberg, learned how to do it, and then turned up at the World Championships and surprised everyone. And within the space of 24 hours, everyone had to learn how to skate.
It was amazing, and it had been around a little bit in the distance races, 90 kilometres, where on the flats they would just keep one ski in one track and stepping. It was, and they figured, well, this is faster, but it changed very quickly.
So Polteranen has stuck with Dario Colonia and now doing a little bit of leading himself. We've got Harvey and Deerhaugen Niskanen in the group behind. I think Eldar Roning is in that group as well, a man who's better recognised for his classic. Now the margin at 141.
Massive.
What was it last time?
Massive.
126. 126, our last split for Dario Colonia. So still they're losing to that leading group of 4.
And I think Dario, he started, remember, only 55 seconds behind, so this is a real disappointment for the Swiss team, for Colonia.
Well, not really surprised to see Roning. He wasn't actually in that group, as you can see. He's dropped off the pace somewhat, and having started 131, he's lost 42 seconds or so. Now, this group are moving well, led at the moment by Roland Clara of Italy. Just behind him, wearing 16, is Marcus Hellner, who's world champion sprint from 2011. And Musgrave is still there, just getting tied up with Chernozov. So down into the stadium. Waiting for them to go through 15.7.
Who's still at the back?
Yeah, he's still at the back, and he's happy to be there. Belov back in front. Halvorsen looking comfortable. Can you read the body language of these 4, Mike?
It's so difficult. It's so difficult. Northug occasionally looking fatigued, but he's the wisest athlete there. He's making this the most efficient and easy journey he possibly can, and that's what racing is about. I still love the way that Belov is pushing hard. He's technically brilliant. You just feel he's going to try and snap this group.
Well, it may not come on this lap. 3 laps completed. They've got another 2 to go. I think the very fact that it's a stage race, I think the breaks tend to come a little bit later, closer to the finish, because the bonus seconds are going to be so valuable. Will anyone be bold enough to go on the penultimate lap?
Possibly, but they've been given the split times on what's happening behind them, and they've been told Dario Colonia is 1:38 behind. That's the next serious threat. So they're realising that now the Tour de Ski is about these four for the top titles, for the big prize money and the 400 points. So I think they've slowed down a little at the front, and that will allow this third chasing group, I think, to absorb Colonia, and maybe they'll realise there might be cat and mouse going up the front. So this will energise this chasing pack. Huge gap time-wise, 1:38. It'll be 1:40 now, I think, back to Colonia.
Alex Harvey in the lead in this group. He's done a fair amount of leading. Well, we've got Rahima of Estonia, who has pulled out, just in case you were trying to track him. So that's the end of his tour. That's disappointing for the Estonian.
Bit 49, yep, pulled out.
But he's by no means the first man to drop out of the tour.
Well, Colonia has dropped. That'll be 2 seconds, about 3 or 4 seconds. Maybe Colonia's just waiting for some help, for someone to assist him with the pacing, to try and close the gaps.
What about this group led by Alex Harvey? We need to keep an eye on them. Remember, they're 1:51 behind at the moment. They've got no chance of catching the leading group of 4. They've certainly got a chance of closing down on Dario Colonia, which they'll want to do. But I guess there's also that group behind, which last time we saw was led by Roland Clara of Italy. They're closing down on that third group. So that's going to be an interesting one, and that will certainly help the likes of Musgrave and Magnifica if they can close on the group led by Alex Harvey at the moment.
Well, that's right. So the third chasing group is led by Helner at the moment. Clara, Magnificat's in there.
That's a nice shot. You can see the different body angles from Sundby wearing 2 and Peder Northug behind him. Look at the increase in hip flexion and the reliance on the arms from Northug. It's a beautiful position from Sundby. Master of technique. I was so impressed with his sprinting in Val Mustair, Mike, that the blast of energy he put into the second climb every time round. But the technique didn't change. It was just the power applied, the length of the glide, and the slight change in tempo.
And I think his balance was beyond belief. He's not in stature, he's not a tall guy, but he was covering more meters than anyone else on each placement of the ski, as he is today, although Belov is a huge athlete. And I love the way that Belov skis, especially bringing the feet underneath the belly button, then up into the hill. So using the energy as he places the ski onto the snow.
Good power from Belov, doing skate 2 up this climb. Halverson is matching him. Sundby likewise. Peder Northug's been in skate 1 for a while now. Takes a lot of balance, and it takes a fairly hefty heart and lungs to achieve that. But it's interesting, isn't it? It looks as though those leading 3 were getting more work out of the ski. Now, here goes Dario Colonia. He's about to be absorbed by group number 2. And at the moment, we've got Polteranen leading it, number 5. But just moving out to the left of the track on your right-hand side is Rickardsson of Sweden, who's up the tempo. Now, that's a nice style, isn't it? You keep the tempo high, reduce the amount of work that the arms have to do. And Colonia straight in there. He's not going to let them go, is he?
He's not, no. And I think this is good news for Colonia. He'll get a breather, and maybe he'll try and put an attack in later.
Niskanen at the back of that second group. And here comes group number 3. Led by Magnifica at the moment. We'll get the splits as they come through. The good news for British skiing is that Andrew Musgrave is still in the third group. Remember, he started number 21 today. He's got himself into the top 20, certainly. And where you finish today is effectively your position in the Tour. There's Musgrave wearing 21. Just behind him is Ilya Chernozov of Russia. He's got the biggest names in world skiing with him at the moment, and he looks very much part of the scene.
And I think they've broken Eldar Roning. Once that gap starts, it's very difficult for the athlete to close the door again. And I think ahead of them, Niskanen has been broken, so they're going to catch Niskanen.
Jespersen 15. Well, I think this is, although I love the scenery of the old race up the valley towards Dobiaco. I really enjoy this multiple lap because I don't know, there's something about it. You've got more ups and downs, there's more technical skiing, and therefore more opportunity to apply pressure at certain times.
It is. The only thing about this 5 kilometre track, we're looking down a very steep hill. We're not quite getting the profiles on the long helicopter shots from point to point. We could maybe get more of those angles.
24, Tony Livers, haven't really seen him before, and Livers is going to be over 3:20, perhaps even 3:30 behind the leaders. Francesco De Fabiani, number 19, he's some way back at the moment. I thought he might make some gains today, but he's not managed to stay with his teammates Clara and Nokla, who are in that group with Musgrave further up the track. Beloff, Halvorsen, Sundby, and of course Petter Northug, or has Northug dropped off the leading group of 3? No, of course he hasn't. He's actually moved ahead of Halvorsen.
Well, what happened to Halvorsen? Because Halvorsen, last camera shot, took the initiative. Has there been a stumble, a fall, a trip? Quite possible, and they're clipping each other, the tails of the skis, the poles often getting in the way.
Sundby seems to be breathing fairly heavily, if you judge by the ice on the beard and the moustache. Rickardson looking good, number 11. Dario Colonia looks a little bit tight in the shoulders. So, 18.6. 18.6 completed. They head back down to the stadium now, and then they will start their last 5 kilometre loop to make up the full 25 kilometres for today. We're back with the Tour de Ski. It's leg 5 of 7. We've got a leading group of 4 who are way out front. Well, we're waiting to find out because the next lot haven't been through the split point, just under 19 kilometres as yet. And remember, they're heading down towards the stadium when they will start their final lap of 5 kilometres. So this group now being led by Dario Colonia, who was absorbed by them earlier on. He's fought his way to the front again, and Colonia 150 behind. What's that, 750 metres, maybe even 800 metres off the pace of the leaders?
It's quite amazing, but he's on good form, Colonia, but he's lost effectively 55 seconds to the lead group in his own pacing. I'm really surprised about that. I thought he might have been able to level pace with the front group.
Well, don't you think his race today just indicates how important it is, as we see Niskanen losing the second group? He's going to drop down into the third. How important it is to have men around you. If someone like Dario Colonia, who mentally is as strong as anyone out there, can perform 2, 3, 4% better when he's got other skiers around him, it just shows you the importance of being in a group and not getting stuck in no man's land.
No, it absolutely does. And there's a little bit of broken spirit there from Colonia as well. He didn't make it through to the finals in the sprints to pick up those precious seconds, and we've seen him actually, remember, from a Cortina lead. When he's motivated at the front, he's led, he's held on to his lead there with the whole world chasing him down. He had a lonely 35 kilometre ski here in years past. Had
yesterday been a 15 kilometre race, do you think Colonia would have had enough time to claw back some time on the leaders?
I think he would have. I think that short race was another factor in this, because you can't snap people, you can't break time. The fatigue levels they're all functioning in now is high, but yesterday I would have liked to have seen at least 5 kilometres more for the men.
So 20.7 completed. They have got 4.3 kilometres to go. A slightly longer loop on the first one, as you might have noticed. The first loop at 5.7 kilometres. And so away we go. Last loop, 4.3 kilometres. It's going to take well under 15 minutes. I think it might be even closer to 11 and a half, 12 minutes, the speed that they've been going so far.
You've got to expect, surely, 4 kilometres to go, just over 4 kilometres, surely Belov, Sundby, could it be Halvorsen? Somebody's got to put in an amazing turn of pace to try and get rid of the other 3.
Well, whatever happens, Mike, surely this leading group of four are going to be separated by no more than, what, 30 seconds come the start of the final day. The bonuses are going to be important today. I know a few of you are not fans of the bonus system, but I think you've got to be racing for something. Otherwise, that leading group wouldn't accelerate in the closing stages, because 1 second means nothing for the start of the final stage. So you've got to put something there. And actually, the bonuses have been massively reduced from the first running of the Tour.
Yes, they have. And traditionally, we will in the mass start, I think, get some bonus points. But no, in fact, Saturday is just the top three, 15, 10 and 5 again. Often we've picked up bonus seconds on the way round.
Yeah,
but
so they've taken out those intermediate points that Nortic and Colonia used to sweep up between them and make the Tour a two-man race, whereas this year it's fantastic. We've got 4 men in the running now for the overall win. We've got a whole host of men looking for those minor placings, so there's going to be almost a mass start at the start of the final day, the way things are going at the moment. Let's look at the margin. It was 150 last time we saw them at the top of the hill on the penultimate loop, and they've still got at least 15 seconds of skiing, so I don't think the group led by Dario Colonia has made any impression on the leading group of 4. But what a race these men are going to have. Alex Harvey is there, Colonia in black, the tall man in 11, that's Rickardson. Just behind him, number 5, is Alexei Polteranin, and 5, of course, the position he's in the overall Tour at the start of today. And then the third group, which is slightly larger, and looks as though Niskanen's being blown out the back of that at the moment. We have Andrew Musgrave wearing number 21. Slight falter on the technique there, Mike. The fatigue setting in. We suggested if it's going to hit him, it's going to hit him on lap 4-5.
Well, it will, but I think he's so motivated. They've absorbed Niskanen, and he's just dropped off the back quickly. He's completely spent, Niskanen. So it really is survival for a lot of these athletes. Sunby now is trying to lift the pace, trying to get rid of at least one of them.
Yeah, Nortic's problem with being in 4th is that if Sunby pulls away from Belov, then Nortic's not really going to be in a position to challenge. He'll keep an eye on it, though. He will keep a careful eye on it.
Well, how many times has Nortic showing us the impossible? And that's in the back of his mind. He's the ultimate racer. They're beginning to play cat and mouse a little. Nortic picking up 3 meters just by his stepping around that corner.
Yeah, I mean, there aren't many men who would choose to be at the back of a big group in a race. We've often said that the position to be is 3 or 4 because it reduces the concertina effect. But the way Nortic skis, it doesn't matter. We saw that on the second stage of this Tour, the 15-kilometer classic in Oberstdorf. He was happy to sit back in 20th, 25th position, and he still came through to take the win.
It's amazing. His turn of pace. Nobody can match that even now after they've seen him around in the World Cup for 10 years.
Well, Kalle Halvarsson is Sweden's big hope. There he is in the white suit, as I'm sure you know. He's had a very good season, Halvarsson, second in the overall standings. He comes from Falun, so he'll be looking forward to the World Championships on home snow. And he's had 10 results this year in the top 6, which is fantastic. And if you look at his improvement over the years, his World Cup ranking, 47 to 15 to 5, and now sitting in second. That is the sort of progression you want to see from a youngster.
It's brilliant. It's so good. And of course, he was formerly a teacher, and when he eventually got the funding to join the team full-time, his results just went up and up all the time. Could this third group of chasers absorb this group? And if that is the case, that gives many of these athletes a chance to place, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th in the Tour de Ski.
Yeah, they look as though they've closed down a little, but I suspect that group led by Rickardson at the front have a little bit more to give. There's Alex Harvey. Dario Colonia just dropping to the back of that group, having done his fair share of the leading, and then we'll see them through. 150 last time round, and the margin just fractionally bigger, so they are certainly accelerating now in their bid for the minor places. No bonuses available for any of these men. The third group, and Jespersen of Norway leading. 12 is Vilishanin of Russia. Behind him for Italy is Roland Clara. Behind him, Maurice Magnificat, the best of the French. And behind him, the best of the British, Andrew Musgrave, in the top 15 of the standings in the Tour de Ski at the moment. If he can stay on his feet, he is certainly going to stay in the top 15. Phenomenal effort from Andrew Musgrave. And, well, we'll be taking more than our hats off if he manages to stay in that position all the way down to the finish. But a stage race, Mike, it doesn't mean much if he can't hold it over the weekend as well.
Well, and the day's rest tomorrow, that's going to recharge him. That's going to give a centering, get some of that energy back. And then it's a mass start classic, so it's a survival on that. And we know how good Andrew Musgrave is at climbing the final steep 4 kilometres on the final day. So he has a chance of a top 10 in the Tour de Ski, maybe even better.
Still waiting for them to go through 23.5. We'll give you an update when we've done that. No real difference on ski speed. We haven't seen anyone accelerating on the downhill significantly. As we have a look at the positions, the arrows indicating whether they've moved up or down. Kalle Halvorsen is in third at the moment. Jonsrud Sundby, 46.12, his time on that last split at 22.4, and they now have under 2 kilometres to go. Decent margin between Musgrave and Hellner. Mike, Musgrave taking the scalp of Marcus Hellner. That is, I think, we'll be ringing our old coach Krista Eriksson and Krista Skog just to ask them what's going on in Sweden.
It's phenomenal, and to have picked up and got rid of very quickly Niskanen, Hellner. There's a lot of big names that cannot handle the pace, because the pace is fearsome, and Andrew Musgrave still running faster than the best in the world, Sundby, Halvorsen, and of course Belov, in real terms in this race.
Well, it's become a tactical race up front. They know that they have a big margin. 150 is very healthy indeed. Belov's the man who takes on the work at the front, and Halvorsen of Sweden right behind him. Sundby and Northug the back, still only two. I don't think we've ever had more than 2.4 seconds separating all of them.
And with 1.4 kilometres left, I'm amazed that someone from this far out isn't trying to get rid of, snap a little bit, roadblock somehow Northug, because they know they won't stand a chance if it gets closer to the stadium and he decides to go to the front.
But you have to remember, Mike, Belov put in a great performance in the sprint in Val Moser. We had Sundby on the podium in the sprint in Val Moser. So Northug may not find it so easy. He's got some pretty good fast twitch skiers in front of him.
He has, and these tracks are only 6 metres wide because of the lack of snow. I know they've made them half a metre deep, but that could well be a factor for Northug trying to get around the traffic ahead of him.
And actually, all four of that leading group were in the final of the sprint in Val Moser, so there are going to be some fireworks coming into the stadium. Looking forward to that already. Behind them, there's a good fight for the minor placings. I think that second group are going to hold off the first group. There is still a margin of something like 18 seconds. 1:44 behind. The chase group have picked it up. They've closed down 6 seconds since the last of the split points, but too little, too late. Certainly, as they come towards the 50-metre point for the time split. Polteranen, number 8, that's Niklas Dierhaug, who looks to be fighting for a good position. Well, Alex Harvey hasn't really made any mistakes, Mike. It's damaging in terms of his possibilities of finishing in the top 3 in the Tour. I think it's put an end to that, but he still looks impressive.
He still, and for me, the surprise performance is Cologne dropping a minute off the lead time. He's just not at the races today, whether it's his glide factor on his skis or the feeling of fatigue in his body.
Now remember, Magnificat, who started this race, started 2:34 behind the race leaders, and Musgrave started 2:36. Magnificat's got it down to 2:04. Musgrave's got it down to 2:06, so they are the two fastest men out there today. Into 13th position for Musgrave. They have left Marcus Hellner behind. They've left Niskanen behind as well.
Well, look at this, Who's at the front?
Here we go. Ben Northug, who's been in 4th all the way round. They must have known it was coming, and he's hunting those 15-second bonus points. Round the stadium he goes. Beautifully technical on the corners. He stays low. A little bit of free skating from Northug. A little look over the shoulder just to see where the opposition are. And I think he'll have been happy to see Halvorsen 5 metres behind. Sundby's got no response. Belov, who's done far too much work up the front of the group, finds himself in fourth at the moment, and he may finish out of the bonuses already. No doubt about the winner. It's an extra 15 seconds for Petter Northug. He got the tactics absolutely right. Well done to him. 53.56 for 25 kilometres. It is staggering what they can do nowadays. Halvorsen, Sundby, Beloff, 2, 3 and 4. Only 2.4 seconds separating them in time, but the bonuses will make all the difference. 15 for first, 10 for second, 5 for third. Beloff misses out altogether. Is that going to be a determining factor come the final day?
Oh, well, he's 15 seconds. He didn't pick up the bonus. Of course, Northug picked up the 15 and the 10 he lost, the 5 he lost. Really sad having Beloff having taken on so much of the work. But this man, you've got to conserve energy. That's what he did.
It's clever. Yeah, there will be some who say he didn't do his fair share, but it's clever. He's playing to his own strengths, and I think the remainder of that group must have known that Northug was going to come through with 500 metres to go, and he's done just that. The other option, Mike, was to go absolutely flat out on the last climb, but surely they're thinking of Saturday and Sunday. This is a better option.
This is a better option. I'm just surprised. It's such a pity we didn't see the actual break when Northug went. I'm amazed they didn't find some kind of strategy to try and hold him back, to try and shade him a little more, and quite likely there was a fallout on the track.
Well, who's going to take top prize in the second group? It could well be another Norwegian. At the moment it is Niklas Dyrhaug who leads. He's had a good tour. It didn't pick up so many points in the sprint in Valmuster, but otherwise he's had a really good tour, and he could be moving up a few places today. He's ahead of Alex Harvey. Dario Colonia, who can sprint a bit, in third in this group at the moment, but he's now moves to his right, but I think he's left it too late. Dyrhaug starting to tie up with 10 metres to go. Harvey could come in and steal it. No, not quite. Dyrhaug gets fifth, Harvey 6, Colonia 7, and then we got Polteran in back in 8, and the third group just about to come in. Let's get the cameras back on them, because we want to see if Andrew Musgrave's got a little bit of a sprint in his legs. Surely we can get back to see that. Here they come. Musgrave it is on the right-hand side. He's going into 11th position in the Tour de Ski, only 2:08 behind. He is the quickest man to complete today's 25-kilometre course, and the best result ever seen by a Brit. Wow, what a race. What a race. Northug, predictable, Mike, his brilliance, his burst of speed. We knew it was going to come at some stage. Unfortunately, the camera's missing it, but it was impressive nonetheless. But I think the other three didn't think it was worth trying to chase him down.
Well, they tried. They thought it was worth it. If you can pick up 15, it was worth it, but nobody can match him. And I think that's great from Sundby, saying, listen, you've done a whole lot of work there, and at the end it didn't pay off.
I didn't see him go and shake Northug's hand.
No.
It's hard to take, but that's the way Northug races. We know that. Let's see what he has to say.
A bit of the race today. We know you're always going to be strong at the end. A little bit of the strategy today, save some energy and go for the win and a few bonus seconds.
Yeah, I was together with Belo and Halvorsen and Sundby, and they were all stronger than me today, so yeah, I just had to keep my head up and fight for 5 laps and try to catch some bonus seconds here the last 300 meters.
And we get a rest day tomorrow, but then we get to go to Val de Fiemme, where you've had success in the 15 Classic before. It's a nice event for you before we have the final climb.
Yeah, for sure. I like the 15 Classic race in Val de Fiemme. Hopefully I can fight for some bonus seconds, but I know the Alps Armis is not my race, so I need to be in front.
All right, well, congratulations on the victory. Enjoy the rest, and we'll see you in Val de Fiemme.
Thanks.
Well, he's perfectly honest. He says he was the weakest of that group before. He may have won, but I think, you know, Mike, I think you could see that technically he wasn't as happy as the other three were, but he played his cards absolutely right.
He did. It's about strategy. He's the ultimate athlete who can figure it out. I'm surprised he's admitting that the final day is not his race. It isn't, we know that.
Well, we've seen it 8 times, and he's not managed to pull anything out of the bag. And I don't think he's got a big enough margin at the moment to be thinking he is going to be the Tour champion. Sundby still remains a favourite. I think Beloff, if he can do what Legkov did 2 years ago, maybe it's going to be his year at the top of the Alpe Chemise. And don't rule out Halvorsen. He has not put a foot wrong so far. So the big story of the day here in Italy is that Petter Northug has won another stage of the Tour de Ski. That's his second win this season. He's had 3 out of 5 on the podium. But I think the biggest surprise of all, the comeback by Andrew Musgrave of Great Britain. He's gone from 21st all the way up into 11th position. He's taken his deficit on the leaders from 2:36, and before the bonus seconds get added, Musgrave is 2:08 behind, so he's definitely made a gain in terms of time.
Quite phenomenal. By my calculation, he is the fastest man over 25 kilometres in the world today. In old money, that's a World Cup victory, and it's such an impressive performance. He went very hard very early on, didn't quite know whether he could last, but that is Muzzy's strength.
Does he pick up the 50 points? I think he may well pick up the 50 points for the fastest time today. We'll update you on that. Certainly that's the case on the Ultra Meets. The fastest descent gets the 50 points. The winner of the Tour, of course, getting the full 400, which is a hefty whack to take, and often determines the outcome of the overall World Cup come the end of the season.
It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I think Belov, he finds himself now, some 16 seconds off Northug's lead time, having crossed the line within a second and a half of him. And I think that's disappointing for the Russian. I thought he may well have finished second, even first today.
Tamyarv of Estonia at 48, they'll go in the wave, or they started in the wave. Although I think this is probably the most scenic race we do, certainly in the Tour and during the season, Mike. The crowds here in Italy, certainly not as vocal, not as big as they were in Val Moster, which have really taken the Tour de Ski to their hearts. Should we be looking for venues where you can get 20, 30,000, or should we be holding the events in the evening so everyone can come out of the offices and come and support it?
Possibly. I think had we been on the point-to-point from Cortina over into this valley today, I think we would have seen many more along the track. We have in the past, but the weekend there'll be more up the final 2 days in Val di Fiemme.
I thought we saw a couple of farmers and a goat last year. There weren't that many more out there, but it was fantastic shots. Would you choose the Valley race, or would you choose this 5x5?
I would go for the Valley. It just makes it's point to point. You can see exactly where everyone is, where all the athletes are. Of course, we can pick that up here, but you've got this beautiful long-range camera where you can see the athletes and the climb they have to make.
I would agree, but I would cut it down to 25 kilometres, because I like the fact that we have the 4 leaders so close together. So we still have one race to go here in Toblach, and of course that is the women's race over 15 kilometres. It's a much harder race than they had to do at this stage of the Tour last year. Marit Bjørgen is going to be out on her own, and I guess, Mike, we have to look and see whether the Usbergs and the Wengs and the Johaugs team up to chase her down, or whether Johaug goes it alone to try and chase down Marit Bjørgen. That's going to be a fascinating race, even though there is a much bigger gap between the leaders.
A huge gap, but I think we're absolutely going to see Therese Johaug trying to make a huge... This is her only chance to close this gap. It's a big gap, 2 minutes, and she's going to try surely to close that as best she can. Bjørgen, will she be a little complacent today? She's got such a huge lead. I don't think so, but surely she can't keep providing us with the best and the fastest times day on day on day. I saw when Giorgio Ticenta came across the line, a big shake of his head. He's over 8 minutes behind. Normally we always see him in the top 10 on this day of the Tour de Ski.
So a very quiet scene as we get confirmation of the top 10 finishers and the Union Jack down the bottom. Villigjanin, that's a good man to be coming in alongside. Danny Rickardson did a lot of the work in that third group. He deserves credit today. Further down, Maurice Magnificat, who dragged Musgrave up towards that third group and then faded a little bit at the finish, but still a very good effort from him. Second fastest, I think, today. We'll wait for confirmation of that. Hellner, not a bad run at all. Devon Kershaw for Canada now 4:11 behind. Volsenseth, Alexander Bezmertnik has dropped right down. Mike, he would have liked today's race to be in the classic style. It wasn't, and he's dropped. Even Babikoff for Canada outside the top 25 as well. Well, there are some big names there, and they're not seconds, they are minutes behind Andrew Musgrave.
Huge amount of big names, big scalps.
There's Giorgio De Centa, 47th, 8:03 behind, as you said.
He's a chance tomorrow, in 2 days' time in the Classic, over 15 kilometres, but unlikely to close any of that time.
And he's good on the final climb. Maybe we'll see some fireworks from him on the final day of the Tour de Ski.
I did notice there was a yellow card beside Bernard Tritcher's name. Now, whether he's had some contact on a corner or maybe interference on the final sprint today, something has gone on. So it seems like there's a decision going to be made on that one.
So let's just recap the top positions. Nortug winning yet again in the Tour de Ski to extend his lead. Halvorsen in second for Sweden, Sundby third, and Yevgeny Belov of Russia in fourth position. 17 seconds now, that's with the bonuses added. So it's so tight at the start of the final day. Of course, we have one more race before then, which is the men's 15-kilometre classic. It's a mass start, so they'll all be keeping eagle eyes on each other all the way through that. Haug, Harvey, Colonia, all over 2 minutes. That's a massive margin. They're 800 metres off the pace of that leading group. And it is possible, with the design of that final day, a 2-minute margin can be gained. But you've got to be on the best form of your life if you're going to do that. And although Nortug leads, I think Sundby, Belov, Halvorsen all have a better chance of winning. Well, plenty more action on the skinny skis coming up. We're off to Oberhof, of course, for the biathlon, the men's relay after the women's relay won by the Czech team yesterday. Are we in for more surprises there? The weather conditions are not good, and the wind is going to play a role. There is no doubt about that. And then, of course, the women's 15-kilometre freestyle, 3 times round the loop that the men have just been racing on, and Marit Bjørgen, the odds-on favourite to win that and extend her lead in the Tour even further. Final word, Mike, for
once again, this man at the front. He started at the front and he's finished at the front. A very tactical race, a wise man's race, and he came through, as he said, only 300 metres to the line.
And he said he was the weakest. I think there was an opportunity for the other 3 to drop him on the way round. They've not done it, they've not gone for it, and they pay the price. Halvorsen, second place in the Tour overall. Is it going to be the Swedes here? Charlotte Culler's won it for them before. Is it going to be Halvorsen in 2015? Petter Northug, the only man to have finished in the top 10 in every edition of the Tour, but he has never won it. He certainly deserves it for effort alone, but the bookies will still not fancy him because he doesn't like that final day. He knows it, we know it, but can he disprove us? We will see. Thanks for your company. We'll be back soon.